Breaking news and great news if you're a Bengals fan. Trey Hendrickson ending his hold in with the Bengals. Our Jonathan Jones reporting that he's going to get a $14 million raise for one season, go from $16 million to right around $30 million this season. Hendrickson had been holding in because after leading the NFL in sacks last season, he wanted to be one of the highest paid ends in football. He doesn't get the long-term deal, maybe even not the guaranteed money, but he does get a significant raise for this upcoming season. We want to welcome in former GM Ran Carthon along with our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. JJ, what more can you tell us about this interesting one-year deal that really has just been restructured?
Yeah, the Bengals didn't budge. They gave Trey Hendrickson a raise, but they're not guaranteeing any money beyond 2025. Trey Hendrickson, who has been an All-Pro, a Pro Bowler, a fantastic person for that team on the field and off the field in the locker room. And so getting him a raise, that's been on the table for the Cincinnati Bengals this entire offseason. Trey Hendrickson and his representation wanted long-term security. They wanted multi-year deal, but they also, within that deal, they didn't just want the average annual value that we would plaster up on a graphic. They wanted money that was guaranteed beyond this season. That is something the Cincinnati Bengals historically don't do, but for a couple of players. Of course, they did it with Joe Burrow, just did it with Jamar Chase. But Trey Hendrickson had been trying to break through. That was really what has been the breaking point for Hendrickson himself over the last several months. And really going back even to last year, if we're talking about how he had the trade request last year. And so ultimately, Trey Hendrickson wants to play for the Cincinnati Bengals. They want him. And so the Bengals do not budge on how they go about their contracts, and they keep Trey Hendrickson with this raise.
Ran, as a front office guy, a former EVP, former GM, what do you make of this deal that will keep him there for this season, but for the future, we don't know?
Yeah, it's what JJ said. It just secures, get your guy in the building, your team captain on defense. It gets him in the building for this year, and you can kind of bring everything along. We've talked about it before here that they have a new defensive coordinator in Al Golden. So you need guys, you need purveyors of the message to be in there, and Trey Hendrickson is definitely that. But again, this is just the Cincinnati Bengals doing Cincinnati Bengal things and just getting their guy done for this year. And like JJ said, there is no long-term future as of now for Trey Hendrickson and the Cincinnati Bengals.
So projecting forward, JJ, when do you expect them to start maybe trying to renegotiate a longer-term deal? Is this just going to be tabled until the end of the season, you think?
Yeah, I think this is probably what it ultimately is going to be. Is it out of the question? Rand can speak better to this than I certainly can. Is it out of the question that they could come back in October and say, hey, this is going really well, and we're going to forget our typical precedent, and we're going to go ahead and lock you up beyond that? Maybe, but it seems very unlikely, right? This seems like they may be in a very similar position ahead of the start of free agency when we get to March of 2026. We'll see if they're able to still tag Trey Hendrickson if they want to. Not sure that that is something that they would ultimately wish to do, even if they have that ability via this new restructured contract. And so as it stands right now, it certainly seems that Trey Hendrickson and the Cincinnati Bengals will be a year-to-year proposition. But of course, when you're looking at that defense, and looking at how that defense looked in the preseason and projecting forward with what this Bengals team is hoping to be this year after narrowly missing the playoffs, all they care about is 2025.
And Chris, I'll just throw this in there because it's something that we hadn't hit on. No matter how you see it, I'm joking, speaking tongue-in-cheek, saying Cincinnati doing Cincinnati things, but they have the leverage because they have 2 years of franchise tags if they so choose to, like JJ said. So getting an extension done, it could still be on the table, but they very much have, everything working in their favor right now that if they can't get anything done and they want to franchise tag him, they may very well do that come next March.
Things like this, and you mentioned Bengals doing Bengals things, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but as someone who's been in other front offices, do teams use that against the Bengals when they're trying to land, say, a free agent that Cincinnati might also be going after?
Well, it's definitely working in your favor. I don't think, I would give myself a hating fine if I was hating on another club and how they do business. The best way for me, I would say, is just to show up and do good business and do business. And that's when I was in the front office of every club that I was ever with. I always wanted to be known and be in a place that we're known for doing good business. And I think that trumps everything, just being able for teams, not teams, but players and agents to know that when they were dealing with our club, that they know we were going to do good business and have a resolution that would be favorable for all parties.
And Ran absolutely hit on it with Cincinnati Bengals, with their reputation. I think that we just heard from Boomer Esiason earlier this week, right? The Cincinnati Bengal great who's in the Ring of Honor with the Bengals, who has to pay for his own fare and hotel at a discounted rate at a local hotel if he wants to go to the next Ring of Honor ceremony, right? The Bengals have a reputation for a reason. And yes, this is a multi-billion-dollar franchise that if Mike Brown and his family wind up selling the team, would make $5 billion easily. No question about it. That doesn't mean they have $5 billion lying around. And while the smallest violin in the world plays for someone who has an asset worth $5+ billion but doesn't have that money to spend, the point is that they do not generate the sort of cash that most other NFL teams do. Then you add in the fact that they have an antiquated way and system of going about business. You put those two things together, and yes, it does hurt you in going out in free agency. Whether other teams, to answer your question, Chris, whether other teams have to use that against the Bengals or whether players and their representation, when they know, well, goodness, that team is not even going to guarantee half of my contract for the second year, but this other team will guarantee my third year. I'm going to the other team. You don't have to use it against them. We all know.
Well, Chris, I'll throw this in real quick. Sorry. Always remember, it's cash versus cap, right? Mm-hmm. The cap is just the ceiling, and how much you can actually spend. Those numbers, as we've seen, can be manipulated. Every year we go into the season, the Saints are $90 million over the cap, but somehow they get all these contracts done and restructured. But the cash is the important part. How much cash are these clubs paying out in that given year? And regardless of what the cap is, if the owner sets you with a hard cash budget, you have to come within that. And so, like JJ said, if we're dealing with a team or an organization that does not have cash on hand, then regardless of whether they should get a deal done with said player or not, if they don't have the cash to get it done, it's going to always present a problem.
We always like to make things a little bit more palatable for people that might not want to dive into all the numbers like I know you have to do in the front office, and JJ you have to do as somebody that covers this game as an insider. So we simplify things with an AAV, an average annual value, and for this year, Trey Hendrickson now is going to make $30 million, and that puts him here not in the top 5 of highest paid edge rushers, but at number 6, and still $4 million behind number 5, Nick Bosa. JJ, someone noticeably absent and nowhere near this because he's still on his first deal. Micah Parsons, that's the last one. That's the last hold-in now. What could this mean, if anything, for Micah Parsons and the Cowboys?
Yeah, and to your point, Nick Bosa, for example, above Trey Hendrickson there, Nick Bosa also has $88 million in full guarantees. Trey Hendrickson has $30 million in full guarantees. If we were to extend this graphic and look at a Josh Hines-Allen with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who would be under Trey Hendrickson, he has $75+ million in guarantees, right? So what do you want to do? Do you want to get the average annual value, or do you want to, when you put pen to paper, how much money is coming to me so long as I do my job? So that's an excellent point that you make there. What's next for Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys? This does not impact Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys. Whatever the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson have had going on for however long has never played into Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys. Myles Garrett's money mattered. TJ Watt's money mattered. Jamar Chase's money mattered, right? When you start talking about who is the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, that's where Micah Parsons is slotting in at. And I don't think that this particular contract doesn't impact it. But even if it did, After what we have heard the last couple of weeks, do we think that Jerry Jones would be moved by it? Jerry Jones is not moved by any of this, right? And so it will be fascinating to ultimately watch this play out, because Micah Parsons at this point, with the level of disrespect that he feels that he has absorbed, when you consider the trade request that's already out there, his number is going to be at least $43 million per year. We'll see how this plays out. The Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones get to decide. But until they negotiate or engage in negotiations with Micah Parsons' representation, no deal will get done. And I very much believe, even though Dak Prescott and some other Dallas Cowboys players said earlier today they expect and believe Micah Parsons will be on the field week 1, it is far short of a fait accompli that he, in fact, will be playing for the Dallas Cowboys on week 1.
Yeah, it's a week from Thursday. It's 10 days. It's coming. Ran, what do you think of Micah Parsons and the possibility that he is not playing come week 1?
Well, I mean, we saw the graphic, right? And we talked about highest paid non-quarterbacks. And like JJ said, if that first number doesn't start with a 4, it doesn't factor into anything that's pertaining to the Dallas Cowboys and Micah Parsons. Listen, from what I feel, what I think, what I have an inkling of, I think Micah Parsons' heels are dug in. And the fact that the Cowboys and Jerry Jones in particular are doing the type of media that they're doing and speaking on the level of detail in terms of these negotiations, I think it only hurts their opportunity. Now, I also live by the creed that everybody has a price. So I'm pretty sure that, you know, there's a number that Micah Parsons will forgive all and be ready to go come week 1. But I think that, and this is why I always say these deals are best done in private because they're contentious as is. You know, from a front office perspective, we're going to do something to piss you off. You're going to do something to piss us off in the art of negotiating. But if they're done so privately, all these things can be worked out and you can get something done. But this has been so public and so many people have opinions and they're adding fuel to the fire, and the Cowboys are allowing this to happen. So I think Micah's heels are dug in, and we'll see where this thing ultimately lands.
We've had some news out of Vegas today as well. Jacoby Myers, who's been their number 1 receiver over the last 2 years, when you combine them both, requests a trade. And then moments ago, the Raiders go out, JJ, and are reportedly signing Amari Cooper to a 1-year deal. What more can you tell us about that and what's going on with the Raiders wide receiver situation?
Yeah, that's right. So Amari Cooper heading back to the Raiders, almost said heading back to Las Vegas. You know, it's been a while since he was a Raider, right? But he was a Raider back when they were in Oakland. And so he returns to the franchise, right? The organization. We can just keep it there. But Amari Cooper, I think going into his age 31 season last year, was a struggle for him, right? He played with the Cleveland Browns to start the season. Right before the trade deadline, they deal him to Buffalo. Took a really long time for him to kind of get going, battled some injury there. And so I want to be clear, I do not at all believe that the Amari Cooper acquisition really relates to Jacoby Myers' trade request. In fact, I believe that the Las Vegas Raiders very much want to keep Jacoby Myers and that they should be able to reach some sort of contract agreement and arrangement at some point. But this, when you looked at the wide receiver depth chart, it was not very strong for the Raiders, right? We all know about Brock Bowers. We all know that they have Ashton Genty. So we have guys there who are going to be able to tote the rock, but you still need the wide receivers. And so you get Amari Cooper back with this team. I don't know how much he's going to be able to contribute, but it was a weak position to begin with. And so now signing him and getting him in the fold there in Vegas.
All right, really busy times in the NFL with the 53-man roster cut down coming up tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time, the deadline. The Raiders moving to get Amari Cooper back in that silver and black. Raiders will open up our coverage on CBS in the 1 o'clock Eastern time window in New England against the Patriots a week from Sunday. You can always count on the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.